Before we begin, I want to thank you all for being here tonight. If you like my stories, please consider giving me like and subscribe. It means the whole world to me. Enjoy the stories, and I hope you get the scare you're looking for. I searched my parents' names on the dark web. The videos I found were horrifying. When my friend first introduced me to the dark web, I was amazed at how such an unknown thing could house some of the most illegal things on Earth. Up until today, I had only used it for learning how to code and commit small crimes. But after the horrifying videos I just found, I don't think I'll ever use the dark web again. I first met my best friend Alex when a little bit after I got into high school. My parents had moved us to a new town, and I had no friends. It was lonely at first, but I got used to it. We moved because they were paranoid after many murders occurred in our town. I thought this was weird, moving across the country over that, but I let it go. The reason Alex and I became friends so quickly was because we both had a shared interest in the internet and everything it had to offer. I was a gaming addict and a Tier 3 Pokimane subscriber, while he was more of a coder and developer. 2 years later, we were still best friends. But now, we were much older and smarter. Alex had discovered the dark web, and he was obsessed with it. He pretty much spent every hour of the day on it searching through anything you could imagine. There was nothing wrong with this, but one search he made was the biggest mistake of his entire life. I remember waking up to dozens of text messages from him one morning. This wasn't normal. Alex wasn't a very social person, and it was very hard to get words out of him. I opened my phone to see what he had messaged me. "Dude, Jack, you have to come over right now. This is important. Jack, please wake up. This is urgent. Where are you?" These were only some of the messages, but the rest were very similar, with them all being urgent, and that I needed to go to his house immediately. My parents were both at work still, so I went over to Alex's house. When I arrived, there were 4 cop cars parked in front of his house, and there were dozens of people and news vans standing out front. I made my way through the crowd, and Alex's mother told the police to let me inside. I could see tears rolling down her cheeks as she opened the door. "What's going on?" I asked. "Alex missing," she said as she started crying. My heart sank. How could this happen? He had just texted me earlier that morning. That was when it hit me. What if he was trying to warn me? What if his text messages were related to his disappearance? Still in shock, I walked up to one of the detectives in the kitchen. "Is Alex going to be okay?" I asked. "Of course he is. He's going to be just fine. We're going to find him very soon," one of the detectives responded. Something about that response was off. It was like I knew he was wrong. Deep down, I had this slight feeling that I wasn't going to see him ever again. I remembered the text messages, however, and pulled out my phone to show it to the detective. "He texted me this morning. What if this has something to do with him going missing?" I said swiftly. As he began reading them, his expression quickly changed. It was like it got worse. He told me they needed to keep my phone for now to investigate the text messages, and said they would give it back to me later. I stayed around the house for a while, not just because I missed Alex, but because I wanted to comfort his parents. They cared about me a lot, and it hurt to see them like that. His mother couldn't stop crying. Eventually, however, I went into Alex's room to see if I could find anything that might give a clue about why he went missing. I searched through everything, but I found nothing, but then I noticed something. Alex's computer was on, but his monitor was turned off. I looked for the button to turn it on and hit it. As the screen lit up, my heart sank. He was on the dark web. Obviously, this was normal. But for some reason, he had dozens of different tabs opened. I knew this part wasn't normal, so I closed the door and locked it and began going through them. At first, it was all pretty usual for him, but then things started to get weird. He had a tab open that was an article about a murder that had happened several years ago. The article said that it was a woman who was found dead in her apartment. Her body was mutilated, cut up, and covered in acid. I nearly threw up reading it and seeing the horrifying pictures of the crime scene. Not wanting to see any of it anymore, I switched the tab, just to reveal another article about another murder. Confused, I quickly went through the rest of the tabs he had opened, and they were all the same thing. They all were about some type of murder or crime. The one that stuck out the most to me, however, was one about a murder that had happened 2 years ago. At first, it seemed pretty normal, but as I read further, I realized what it was. It was about the murder of our neighbor that prompted us to move away. Confusion quickly swept over me. How did Alex know about this? I never told him about it because to me it wasn't that important. I figured it must have just been a strange coincidence, but then I saw the last search he had made on his computer. It was my last name. Horrified and confused, I quickly stumbled out of his room and back to the living room. "Is everything all right?" Alex's mother said, sniffing away her tears. "Yeah, I just need to go home for dinner," I responded. On the way home, so many questions and thoughts filled my mind. Why was he searching up my last name? Did he think that I had something to do with this? That must have been why he was texting me so frantically that morning. If only I could just explain to him that I didn't do anything wrong, but I couldn't. He was still missing, and I had to find out why. When I got home, I raced to my room and slammed the bedroom door shut and got on my computer. I loaded up my Tor browser and turned my VPN on. I knew what I had to do. I began typing in the letters of my last name, becoming more nervous after every letter. When I finally hit enter, nothing happened. It was just a blank screen. Confused, I refreshed the page, but once again, there was nothing. But why did Alex search this if there was nothing? I thought to myself. There must be something out there. I was getting ready to close the tab, thinking I had ran into a dead end, when suddenly the page started to load. It took several minutes, but finally it loaded to reveal hundreds of videos. Immediately, I knew what they were. They were murders, but why did they show up when you searched my last name? I considered just stopping right there and turning back, knowing the horrifying things I would see if I continued on, but I couldn't. I knew this had to be why Alex went missing, so I clicked on the first video. As it started playing, I saw what looked like a woman strapped to a chair in some sort of basement or something. I quickly recognized who it was. It was our neighbor from 2 years ago. I could tell because she had the same heart-shaped tattoo on her neck. She sat there for a minute, struggling, panicking, and screaming for someone to help. However, suddenly, 2 figures walked into frame. At first, I couldn't tell who they were, but as they turned around to face the camera, my heart sank. It was my parents. My father was holding a knife, while my mother was holding a small scalpel. They paused for a moment before they started what was the most horrifying 5 minutes of my entire life. I watched as they cut her into pieces and listened as she begged for mercy, screaming the whole time. Blood filled the room as she took her last breath. When the video ended, it quickly went to another, revealing the exact same room and chair I had seen before. I was traumatized by what I had already seen, and I knew I couldn't watch any more of it. My parents were murderers, and I now knew the real reason we moved away 2 years ago. I knew there was something off about that, but I just never could have imagined that this was the horrifying secret that they had been hiding from me. This whole time I thought Alex was trying to accuse me of being responsible for these murders, but I was so wrong. He was trying to warn me. I scanned through more of the videos, each in the exact same room. I was just about finished, ready to go to the police so that I could tell them about what I had just seen when I noticed something. There was a new video uploaded today on the website. I quickly clicked on it and pressed play to reveal what looked like a man this time, strapped to the chair. He had a sack over his face, and I couldn't tell who it was. Once again, however, I saw my parents walk into the frame. My father walked up to the man and pulled the sack off his head. At first, I couldn't tell who it was, but then I realized who I was looking at. It was Alex. My name is Charlie. Here's a short background. Not that it matters. I've never been much for the finer things in life. I've always been happy to put in the minimum effort into my life. I suppose that's why I've been a short order cook for the last 5 years. I'm not going to say where, that would make me too easy to identify. But let's just say it's one of those places that no one really goes to. They just end up there. As long as it's cooked, it's good enough. In my 36 years on this earth, I suppose my failings at work aren't that much of a surprise. I never really developed what one would call drive. Barely passed my way through high school and ended up at the junior college for a couple of semesters, until they kicked me out for bad grades. But that was always okay for me. As long as I could put a roof over my head, basic food on the table, and pay for my internet, I was happy. As much of a disappointment I was to my family. See, I'm only really interested in one thing, and that's the internet. A basic job with minimum effort required frees up way more time and energy to pursue my one real passion. I suppose in a way that's where it went all wrong. And maybe for that, a life of mediocrity, this is my punishment. I hope someone believes me. Maybe one of you can even help me. I don't know. I've never seen anything like this before. I don't know anyone who has. But if you can help me, please respond. I suppose I should start at the beginning. It's the internet that got me in trouble, not the regular internet. Browse that as you will. Don't do dumb stuff like download viruses or fall for scams, but it's mostly safe. What got me in trouble is the dark web. Stay off the dark web. There is nothing for you there. You want to buy drugs? Find a real-life dealer like a normal person. The dark web is a crapshoot for that anyway, since Silk Road Gate. Best case scenario, you'll end up scammed or traumatized, if you're a normal person, that is. Worst case scenario, you might end up like me. I don't know why I was so interested in it. Maybe because it reminded me of the wild, wild west internet days of the late 90s and early 2000s. I learned about the dark web from my friend Gail, God forever ago. Has to be pushing 10 years now. We were just a couple of dumb kids, laughing our asses off about how you could look at everything and anything free and clear. No roadblocks for illegal content. My interest only grew from there. Me and Gail drifted. He's a normal person. He got one of those grown-up corporate jobs at some dumb firm. He doesn't have much time these days for a high school burnout. But for me, the dark web was like an addiction. I had to look. No matter what it was that was there. Like some sort of perverse fascination. I won't go into detail about all that's there. I'm sure you already know. If you don't, you can Google it. Let's just say it's home to all sorts of illegal contents and some fanatical ideologies, and I found it all so fascinating. Don't get me wrong, I was never interested in participating in the perverse market before me. I've never been in a red room. But I like to see what's out there, like some sort of modern-day psychosociologist. I've never had too many problems before, until now that is. I take all possible steps to be anonymous and try to be a ghost. Most users won't notice you if you don't interact. I still don't know what happened. Not really. I was just browsing like normal, seeing what's out there. I came across this page as I was going down the rabbit hole. I don't know why it caught my eye. Resistance. Onion. But it was just a black background with a text box that popped up. It said, "Do you see us? Do you want to be us?" I should have closed my browser. But no, of course not. There was a box for a response, and my smart-ass self replied, "No." Then a response popped up, "Resistance is futile." I laughed at that. Whoever made this site was clearly a Trekkie. Probably just some sort of joke site. I went to close my browser, deciding I'd had enough for the night. As I did, a bunch of scrolling text populated across the screen. I didn't know what the hell that was. It looked like one of those visual effects they'd use for hacking in the old-school tech movies. You know, just random letters and numbers. Dumb. Whatever joke this was, it wasn't a very good one. So again, I went to close my browser, but I never did. I really don't know what happened. I must have zoned out or fallen asleep, because the next thing I knew, I became aware of my surroundings. But at least an hour had passed. All the screen read was end. I'm not going to lie, I got totally freaked out and unplugged my computer. It could stay that way for the rest of the night. It was time I got myself to bed anyway, for my crappy job in the morning. But sleep didn't come easy that night. I was seriously unsettled, and I wasn't really sure why. Nothing bad had happened other than an obvious joke site. The fact that I zoned on it for so long seemed wrong, though. The next morning I got up for work like normal and went in. I cooked up eggs, pancakes, whatever the masses wanted. My coworkers were looking at me funny, though. Ed in particular. He was a pretty hardened kitchen vet and not much got under his skin. I'd finally had enough of his side glances. "Dude, what?" I asked him. "Stop talking about this cool new vegetable website I just have to check out. I'm not interested. You know I don't buy anything online." He growled at me, in true Ed fashion. "Ed, the fuck are you talking about?" Was he finally snapping from the decades of crappy kitchen jobs? Was he about to go postal on this place? "Charlie, you keep talking about some kind of garlic website and how I've got to check it out. I don't know what a garlic website is, but I just buy stuff at Walmart like a normal person." I didn't know what the hell he was talking about. I hadn't said anything about a site. I would never, not to him anyway. Ed can barely read his email, and God knows I didn't have the time or energy to explain the finer parts of the sires I visit to him. So I did what anyone would do and avoided the loon for the rest of the day. Hopefully he'd be normal by tomorrow. However, not that much later, the manager called me into her office. Oh God, what kind of nonsense had Ed said to her? "Charlie, I've gotten quite a few complaints from your co-workers that you won't stop talking about some sort of website. Now I don't know what you're trying to pull, but this is a place of business. I know that influencers and promoting is all the rage these days, but I just can't have that here. The whole kitchen and waitstaff has been distracted all day. Now you need to go home and get yourself together. Come back tomorrow ready to work." Her normally soft-spoken self commanded. I stared in disbelief at my manager, Sharon. I'd never known the young woman to be unreasonable before. But how could she be listening to this hogwash? It just can't be true. "But Sharon—" "Don't but Sharon me," she interrupted. "I can't have this here. If a customer overheard and complained to corporate, what would happen? That would reflect badly on all of us. Now go home and get whatever this is out of your system." Nothing more to say, I suppose. So I walked off to clock out and me on my way. At home, I turned my computer back on. Maybe I could unwind on the internet. The regular internet. I've had enough dark web for the moment. I booted up. All seemed well. I opened my browser and all of a sudden I heard the noise of many emails coming in. Great. What now? I opened my email from my browser bar, and it looks like everyone in my contacts list just about had messaged me. I open a few, and it's all messages like WTF. And this better be a joke. I look at the chains. Apparently I had sent a message to every single person in my contact list. Some sort of video. I play it. It looks the same as the code scrawl that I watched last night on that dark web page. Fuck, I had to have a computer virus. How could this happen? I was so careful. I spend the next several hours replying to the most important people that I was hacked and to not watch it. Unplugged my computer and sat there, wonder what the fuck was going on. I was going to have to get a new computer, that was for sure. Hopefully I'd done enough damage control just now. I thought maybe I'd just watch some YouTube on my TV. Oh fuck though, I couldn't be sure using my internet at all would be safe. With that thought, I unplugged my modem and router. I guess I was in for a long night of going to bed. Sleep didn't come any easier that night. In the morning I got ready for work again and went in. I was determined to say as little as possible to anyone and everyone. I thought I did well. But an hour into my shift, my manager Sharon called me into her office again. "You know, Charlie, I thought you understood what I was telling you yesterday. Not only am I still getting complaints today, now Ed can't stop talking about this website of yours too. That's it. You're fired," she exclaimed at me. I was stunned, to say the least. I didn't bother arguing. How do you argue with crazy? So what could I do? I stormed out. As I was leaving, Ed called after me. "Hey buddy, make sure you check out resistance.onion. It's so cool. You have to check it out." With that, my blood ran cold. There was definitely something very wrong. Ed would never get on the dark web by himself. He can barely work email. God, I hope this wasn't something originating from those email shenanigans I found yesterday. But then it dawned on me that I didn't even have Ed's email. I raced home and slammed the door behind me, got out my cell phone and opened up the recorder. I recorded myself going on about my favorite movies. Just a sample. I played it back and hear myself start talking about some B-rated slashed, but abruptly that stopped, and I started talking about that motherfucking dark website. How? How could I do that without even knowing? I took off, got in my car and started driving. Ended up at some seedy motel. The whole way there, I heard my phone going off. Emails, texts, voicemails. Got myself a room. The clerk was staring me down the whole time. I obviously got the point across that I wanted a room, but God knows what else I said. I sat on the bed and opened my phone. Every fucking message was about resistance.onion. Seems like everyone I had ever been in contact with was sending me a message about the same goddamn website. That brings me to the present. I posted this on Reddit hoping someone out there knows what's going on and can tell me how to fix it. I don't know how much of this story we'll get, though. I'm not sure what the rules are here for spreading this thing. Best I can tell, it's some sort of virus. God help me, I think I have a computer virus. I don't know how that's even possible, but I don't know how else to explain it. Seems to be extremely contagious. The phone to my room just rang. I didn't pick up. I'm scared to answer it. Please help, and I'm so sorry. I found out what happened to my friend on the dark web. There used to be a small YouTube channel called Sam's Online Food Review. It was run by my best friend Sam Ryder, a channel full of videos that consisted of Sam eating and reviewing food and drink before a camera. His channel garnered around 10,000 subscribers, which although wasn't huge, it was big enough for Sam to be dedicated to it. I can recall numerous times of sitting in the passenger seat of his car, staying out of his shot, as moments prior he announced he wanted to video himself trying something he picked up in the store, only moving after he signed off with his signature, thumbs up or down, and his catchphrase, "I like it" or "I loathe it." He was liked for his friendly attitude and happy all-round good guy persona. He was well received by his audience. Rarely were there any hate comments, and when there was, Sam would shrug them off and keep smiling. Sam was always smiling. Sam's online food review went dark 7 months ago. No warning, no notice, just deactivated. I didn't hear or see from Sam, despite numerous phone calls and house visits to no avail. 6 days after his channel was deleted, I called the police to do a welfare check on Sam. I was worried he had fallen ill or hurt himself. The police made entry into his property and found nothing, and Sam was declared a missing person. A week after Sam was declared missing, a dog walker discovered a horrifically mutilated corpse on a railway line. The body had severe lacerations all around the head, arms, chest, and legs, and was almost cut in two across the waist. The decomposing internal organs splayed out of the gruesome V-shaped cut. The autopsy report noted that although no direct cause of death could be confirmed, it was likely the large slit in the throat that brought on death. The autopsy also turned up questionable findings, including the body missing its stomach and heart, long strips of flesh removed off the chest, arms, and lower back, and that the body was exsanguinated. The scene wasn't remarkably bloody, yet the body was almost completely drained of blood. 2 weeks later, the police had identified the deceased. Despite the damage that had occurred to the corpse, the teeth were intact enough to get a viable reference for dental records. My worst fears for Sam were realized. It was him. The police investigated, but could not find forensic evidence of any other person being on the scene. They eventually came to the conclusion that he was hit by a passing freight train. The lacerations and disembowelment attributed to being dragged under, and the missing organs explained away as being eaten by wildlife. A fox, maybe. Sam's mother decided it was best to cremate what remained of her only son. I stood next to her as the beach coffin was pulled into the large furnace. As the door closed and the gas jets ignited with a whoosh, she broke down into tears. And so did I. I stood there sobbing for the entire 90 minutes it took for one of the people I grew up with and shared so many memories with was vaporized. I mourned my friend and done my best to move on. And it was going well. I got distracted. Got a new job. Started dating a girl I met through my work. A few months passed, and even though I missed Sam, things were going well. Right up to the point when I was browsing Reddit at 3 a.m. that I received a Facebook message from the account of my dead friend. I froze, seeing his profile picture in the messenger bubble. A picture taken during good times, Sam's wide smile plastered on his face. I felt a sudden chill. A profound sense of fear enveloped me. You know the fear that makes you cold, and your limbs ache as the slow drip of adrenaline spreads throughout your body. With dread, I opened the message. It was a link to a file-sharing website. I stared at the seemingly random amalgamation of numbers and letters that made up the URL, my head racing through what the hell was on the other side of the link, and more importantly, why did my dead friend send me it? My hand, seemingly on autopilot, brought the cursor above the link with my gut instinct screaming no. I clicked on the link. Before my finger had lifted from the click, I immediately regretted what I just did. Chrome opened a new tab to the website. The screen was gray. Apart from a black rectangle in the middle of the page which had a play button over it, I stared at it, unwilling to click. What I was scared of, I did not know. Around 10 seconds had passed. Then the screen refreshed. Instead of the play button, the rectangle had the words, "Auto playing in 5 secs" in bright white on it. I watched as the numbers counted down, trying to understand what was going on. An abrupt buzzing noise made me jump. The video began to play. The camera was pointed at what appeared to be a grimy, white-tiled surface. I could hear the sound of muffled whimpering followed by footsteps of someone approaching the camera. There was some slight rusting noise as the camera was adjusted. The screen blurred out as the camera was turned. When the camera came back into focus, I let out a choked gasp. In the middle of a white-tiled room, Sam lay on his back on a stainless steel table, his eyes wide in pure, unfiltered terror. The light of a single bulb hanging over the table reflected off the sheen of sweat that coated his forehead. His naked chest rising and falling rapidly in panic. He looked into the camera and attempted to yell, the noise muffled by a tight cloth gag that was bound around his head. His hands were also bound together tightly with duct tape. I stared at the screen, feeling increasingly sick, my brain failing to grasp what was going on. Before I could even comprehend what was happening, the sound of Sam squirming and whimpering was interrupted by a high-pitched, "Welcome to Sam's Online Food Review. Today we have a special treat." The mocking tone came from behind the camera. Sam's panic increased. He started jerking his body, trying to free his hands. The voice continued. "Today we will try what is considered a delicacy in many countries, although usually a forbidden one, that is." The camera zoomed out slightly, and a man appeared in the frame standing in front of Sam. He was dressed in a white coat with a red striped apron on. He wore a butcher's hat and a cloth face mask. In his rubber-gloved hands he held a large red-handled butcher's scimitar, and in the other he held a sharpening rod. The man started running the knife up and down the blade in a smooth fashion, the steel on steel making a smooth shk noise, Sam's panicked, muffled yells growing stronger. The man placed down the sharpening rod and walked around the table. Sam turned his head and started what sounded like desperate pleading with the man. "Poor little lamb," the man cooed. "It won't hurt long and you'll be delicious." Even from here I could see that tears filled my friend's eyes. As he struggled, the man rolled Sam onto his front and pulled his head over the edge of the table. The man then walked out of shot and returned with a metal bucket. He placed it on the floor below Sam's head. In a swift motion, he grabbed a tuft of Sam's hair and lifted his head and started slitting his throat. Crimson burst from his neck and splashed over the bucket and onto the floor, my friend's body jerking uncontrollably as blood spewed out of his neck like a volcanic eruption. As I watched this happen, I threw up. I fell out of my chair in horror. I pulled myself away, not able to see anymore. I fell again by the door, the speakers of my computer loud enough to hear what sounded like slicing and grunting. I lay curled up in the corner, sobbing amidst a panic attack, the minutes feeling like hours. When the sound stopped, I shakily got up and walked to my computer, avoiding the pool of sick on the floor. I forced myself to look at the screen. The page had closed, and Chrome displayed the Reddit screen. The Facebook tab had one notification. I didn't want to click it, but I willed myself to. It was a message from Sam. "I like it." I ordered myself on the dark web. I'm a drug user, I'll admit it. Weed is my usual go-to, but I buy that off my friend. If, however, I want to get something a little heavier like acid or coke, I just order it off the dark web. It's surprisingly simple. A few clicks, some Bitcoin transfers, and then boom, I have acid in my P.O. box. But I'm also a curious guy. The dark web has always intrigued me. Up until a few days ago, I had only been on there to buy drugs off sites some of my friends gave to me. But late one night I was sober and at home, which was a rare thing for me. So since I was bored, I decided to boot up my Tor browser and try and see what sort of fucked up shit I could find on the dark web. If you've ever been on the dark web, you'll know that you can't just search up Red Rooms or Hitman for Hire and get results. No, you have to find links to these websites first. So I hopped back onto Google again to try and find some links to a messed up website. I know it's weird that I was actively searching for the worst, but as soon as I got on the dark web that night, I had a sense of morbid curiosity overcame me. Anyway, I spent a little while trying to find some links. Anything that I found, though, was either too tame for me, or the links didn't work. At this point, I was about ready to give up, and I wish I had. But in one final attempt, I clicked on Reddit. Hoping onto RR Deep Web, I didn't think I would find anything. So I just scrolled through Hot for about half an hour before sorting by new. Then I found it. One simple text post titled, "Slayer's Assassination and Life-Ruining Services." In the text box in the post was what seemed to be just a random assortment of numbers and letters. It took my tired brain a second to figure out what it was, but I realized pretty quickly. It was a link, presumably to a Hitman website. So I decided to paste the link into my dark web browser, and what do you know? It worked. But before I decided to go any further, I figured I should go back to OP's profile to see if they have posted any other dark web links. However, when I went back to the post in question, OP's profile was deleted. Weird. Anyway, I reopened my dark web tab and hopped onto the site. Up along the top of the website was its name, Slayer's Assassination and Life-Ruining Services. And next to it, what looked to be a skull inside of a crosshair. I chuckled when I saw that. The site must be fake. Upon scrolling down, however, I was not disappointed. There was a paragraph of white text on a black background and a small box to the right of the text that just said, "Place an order." The text was the main part, though, as it took up most of the page. It read, "Slayer's Assassinations and Life-Ruining Services offers everything from acid attack, crippling, blinding, castration, torture, rape, beatings, and good old death. We have the lowest prices out of any other company running similar services, and we are worldwide. We have a dedicated and experienced group of staff based all over the world. So if you need someone to be assassinated, or maybe you just want them scarred for life, don't hesitate to contact us." Again, I laughed. This had to be satire, right? Hell, I was even tempted to order it on someone just to see what would happen. Ironically, I actually have a half-decent job, so I can afford to. Better not to risk it, though, I thought to myself. I was about to close my computer and call it for a night when I heard a knock at the door. I live alone, so it was unusual to get visitors, especially so late at night. But when I opened my door, it was just my good buddy Mark, who also happened to be my weed plug. As I opened the door, he didn't hesitate to let himself in and shove a big and baggie full of pot in my face. "This dude, if the best shit I've had in a minute, we gotta try some." I couldn't say no. Cut to a couple hours later, it's early morning, and Mark and I are chilling on my couch, both blazed as fuck. He suddenly decides to get up, and I assume he's going to get some leftover pizza, but he walks over to my desk and computer. "Slayer's Assassinations? Are you gonna kill someone or something?" he mutters. "What?" I reply. "Your computer, dude. It's got some hacker shit on it. It's the dark web, man. Don't fuck with it." At this point, I'm still on my couch, half asleep and not paying full attention. However, I sat up pretty fast when he said the words, "Hey man, let's order a hitman on you." I hoped up and walked over to my PC. Part of my brain was screaming, "No, what the fuck are you doing?" But the majority of my brain, which was also the high part, was thinking about how funny it would be to order a hitman on myself. So I agree. I made him get out my chair, though, because I didn't want him seeing what my credit card numbers were as I transferred some Bitcoin. At the end, after I wrote down all my personal details, like my address, age, and even a photo, I had to select what I wanted to happen to me. I just selected plain old assassination, as it was actually cheaper than some of the other things. I could have paid an extra couple of grand to be beaten before my death, but even my high brain didn't want to splash the cash too much on my own death. God, this is ridiculous. Anyway, I placed the order and then replied to a confirmation email, and boom, it was done. A couple of clicks, and I had ordered myself on the dark web. Mark and I laughed about it for a while, but then he left about an hour later and I fell asleep not too long after. I woke up around 9 a.m., which meant I got at least 6 hours of sleep, even if it felt like I got 3. I got up and out of bed, threw on some track pants and a cotton shirt. Yes, I sleep naked, and brewed myself a coffee before sitting down to play some games and just enjoy my Sunday. You can imagine how shocked I was when I saw that I had ordered my death the previous night. Even though I thought the site was bullshit, I still felt a pit open up in my stomach. Even when I'm high, I usually can make sensible decisions. I chuckled, not like I could remember it anyway, but I guess Mark's new shit really was good. I would assume a normal human being would do something else, but I was still kind of out of it from the night before, so I just carried on with my day. I was a little more paranoid, sure, but as I said, I just assumed it was bullshit. I even laughed at the email I got from the website, saying that their hitman has been dispatched and was on its way. It was like ordering a package of Amazon. I was tempted to email back and ask for some day delivery. But I didn't need to ask, because that's exactly what I got. I didn't see it arrive, but around the time I started to cook myself a shitty dinner, I noticed a blacked-out sedan parked on the other side of the road from my house. I didn't live in a rural area, but there was a lot of trees and bushes between each of the houses on my street, so I would be surprised if any other house saw the car except for mine. At this point, I was freaking out. What if the site was real? Even though I'm a big guy, I was freaking out. I don't own any weapons, aside from a slightly larger-than-average kitchen knife. Fuck it, I'm confronting it, I decided. I put on a hoodie and slid the knife into the front pocket before waltzing on out of my house and walking right up to the driver's side window of the vehicle. Even I was astonished at my own courage. Knocking on the window, nothing happened. It was rather anticlimactic. I was fully prepared to have to fight for my life, all because I did something really dumb while I was baked. But like I said, nothing happened. I even put my head right up to the window as if there was a reflection, to try and get a better look to see what's inside. I could barely see what was inside of the car, but all I could make out were 2 empty seats. No one was even inside. I had got all hyped up for nothing. I decided to wait out by the car for a bit, but after half an hour or so, I was hungry, and I had to go back inside to take my dinner out of the oven. I swear it was only a minute between me going inside to take my dinner out of the oven and looking back out of the window and the car being gone. I didn't even hear it go. Guess I'm eating my dinner with all my curtains closed and doors locked, I muttered to myself. I had just started to calm down when the power shut off. It was sunny outside, and coupled with the car, I now knew that this was the real deal. I had signed my own death warrant. I ran into my upstairs bedroom and locked the door, and then hid under the bed. I couldn't call the cops. What would I say? Oh yes, hello sir. Turns out while super high, I paid $5,000 for some anonymous hitman to kill me, and now he's arrived. Send an officer ASAP, please, and thank you. So I just stayed hiding under my bed, and I still am now. I've been here for an hour now writing this. Think of this as my epitaph. I know I'm screwed. Just a minute ago, I heard my back door slowly creak open. This piece of writing may seem humorous to you, the reader, but in reality, as you read this, I'm under my bed praying to a God that lost all faith in me years ago to spare me, to let me go. But I know that won't happen. My bedroom door just opened, and I can see a big pair of black boots. There are Wikipedia entries on the dark web. I found an article about my life there. You have Googled yourself at some point or another. Admit it. There's nothing shameful about it. It's not worse than what I did. I searched my name on the dark web. Don't ever make that same mistake. I was 19 years old then. Liv, my girlfriend, and her family were kind enough to let me live in their guest bedroom at the start of that year. They liked the fact that I could fix most of their computer problems. Liv is a great person, and what she saw in a hacker who could never survive for long in the 9-to-5 world is beyond me. Their house was in a suburb only a few blocks away from a library and coffee shops with free Wi-Fi. These locations were convenient for my burgeoning career as a digital outlaw. I used those resources until I was able to move out and get a small apartment of my own. After a string of demeaning jobs and abusive bosses, I found financial independence. I did this after I learned how to buy and sell things I shouldn't have with the use of my Tor browser. I engaged in illegal transactions such as ordering counterfeit money and stolen IDs. I discovered there was a large market for manufactured psychedelics. I often went to the skate park to sell those items off the nethermost landscape of the World Wide Web. Business was good. A young man with years spent in foster care, I sought out activities which gave me a sense of control. A childhood of not having any will do that to you. The ability to navigate the online world to get almost whatever I wanted afforded me a sense of power. It was all going well until one evening in July. I sat on the second level of a Barnes & Noble bookstore in a corner next to the self-help section. I always did my best work there. The place was starting to go under, and I did not have to worry about an influx of patrons. Despite having a disguised IP address, I never wanted to risk a raid at home. The items were always shipped to a P.O. box instead of my unit number as well. In retrospect, these were all flimsy safety measures. They still gave me a sense of comfort, even if they were a tad delusional. I made sure there were not any cameras mounted near where I sat. It was a small space out of the way of the general public. Hiding in plain sight was always my preferred method. I drank strong coffee out of an oversized styrofoam cup. After 15 minutes of searching, I grew bored. I typed in my name, Joshua Wells. An input of my identity on that part of the web should be an indicator of how successful and arrogant I had become. I did not expect Wikipedia to be among the results, but it was the third link down. The first one involved a ghost tour in New Jersey. The guide had a similar name. The second was a gore website I was not interested in. While I may have been a thrill seeker, I was not out to consume media which capitalized on hurting others. I clicked on the third article link because of the title. It was about a television show. It read, The Short Life of Joshua Wells. At first, the title did not startle me, since there are plenty of others with the same name. Recaps of 10 episodes were on the page. The first paragraph illustrated how the series did not continue past season 1. I read the summary of the first episode for the sake of passing time. Joshua's father is a known and feared gang member. His mother is a helpless addict. She attempts to use their own son as a drug mule on a plane flight from Boston to California. She has hopes of making a profit by dealing narcotics to a major criminal enterprise on landing. The authorities intercept them. Their son goes with CPS. He goes to a safe harbor for kids. The synopsis struck me as very close to home. Who wrote or directed the show was not listed, but it did state the air date. The month and year given matched the era when an identical set of circumstances had befallen me. The name of the center I went to was even called Safe Harbor. I was too young to remember much, but the facts were precise. I gulped and tried to shrug it off as an unusual coincidence. We follow Joshua on his 15th birthday. He goes to a juvenile detention facility for the first time after he attacks a teacher by throwing a desk at him. Although he missed, the instructor still presses charges since he did not like the student much. He befriends a troublemaker on the inside named Ian. They escape, but not before a massive brawl with the other teens ensue inside of the facility. It ends with the two captured. I felt the hairs on my arms stand up. It was uncanny to me how similar the events were to my own experiences. A slight dizziness overtook me. But I went on to the third, unable to keep my eyes from skimming. Joshua is free. Joshua decides to break and enter an old man's upper-class home after scouting the place for days. His goal is to take the many Rolex watches from the top drawer of the old man's dresser. When he enters the house, Joshua discovers how the owner did not take his vacation cruise trip as planned. The man was asleep in his bedroom until Joshua wakes the victim by accident. Joshua runs away. He gets chased by the homeowner outside, where the elderly male dies of a heart attack in the street. I felt my chest tighten. It was all true, but I had never shared that story with anyone before. It was one of my most guilt-ridden memories. Joshua has nightmares of the old man crawling out of a ditch and choking him to death. He complains about night terrors to one of his counselors, who recommended a doctor. He ends up selling anti-anxiety pills after he does not like the way they make him feel. A girl he asks out overdoses and goes to the hospital. While she survives, he feels terrible, but not enough to stop dealing. He takes his earnings and buys a PC. He takes lessons on how to breach other people's privacy from a group of credit card thieves he met in a mall. Joshua discovers the dark web. He uses it to hustle low-level street drugs at first. He later reads headlines about some of his accomplices getting arrested. He still continues to engage in illicit activity. I looked at the air date for episode 6. It was the 24-hour period I was living through. Joshua goes into a bookstore to poach their internet and to try and make some money. He does not realize there is a man with a shaved head in a Carhartt t-shirt below him perusing the sci-fi aisle. The stranger is actually an undercover FBI agent. The government worker has a microphone and camera attached beneath his shirt. He is surveying for the perpetrator, even though he has not singled out who he is looking for yet. An arrest commences where they tackle, punch, and taser Joshua. They place him in handcuffs. My hands shook. I stood, gripped an Eckhart Tolle volume to appear less conspicuous, and opened it. I leaned my head over the railing to stare at the ground floor below me. A man who matched the description given by the article was there. His shirt was baggy and hid what I knew to be a gun on his hip. He held a paperback in his hands. I pulled out my phone. I pretended to have a conversation with an imaginary business associate about stocks. I folded the laptop with my free hand and went down the escalator. I strolled towards the back where there were stacks of hardcover tomes on history. I found an unsecured door and walked through it. I was in the warehouse. Unopened boxes were stacked all around. I did not spot any workers and made a run for a rear entrance. I sprinted down a wide alleyway between the building and rows of motels. I passed an art gallery and liquor store before my heartbeat slowed. Along the way, I found a closed vegan restaurant called Belenti's Eatery. The place was black on the inside, but its neon sign still glowed. A picnic table sat on the lawn out front. I stationed myself there. I opened the laptop again and connected to their free Wi-Fi without issue. I scanned the rest of the chronology. The remaining episodes were all future time periods. I wiped perspiration away from my forehead as I read the rundown of the next episode. Labeled a dark net market operator in the media, 3 of the 7 charges thrown at him lead to convictions. This includes conspiracy to traffic narcotics. He gets out early after he agrees to cooperate with different agencies. He becomes a consultant for cybersecurity awareness and a social engineering expert. Following a keynote speech given out of town, he comes home. His girlfriend Olivia and her family have been murdered. My eyes strained and I felt my breath grow shallower. Joshua navigates her house. The walls had dried blood. Every corner's vandalized. Olivia's throat is slit. Her body is over the couch in the living area. Her parents had socks stuffed in their mouths and deep stab wounds on their stomachs. Joshua calls the police. He's treated as the #1 suspect in the media for days on end. He is finally cleared, But the psychological damage is too much to bear. I pondered the words. Though I was still young, it is true that Liv meant everything to me. Joshua goes a psychiatric ward. He stares at the padded walls as though they will converse with him. Detectives do visit him with the hopes of gleaning some kind of further information. They tell him they know the aftermath of the massacre he stumbled upon was the work of an active serial killer. The murderer has remained unidentified. Joshua leaps out the window. He breaks his ankle. An adrenaline dump allows him to move across the field and onto the nearest highway. He goes out into traffic. A long-haul truck careens around him and takes out a line of vehicles. He goes to the nearest lake where he weighs his own pockets down with stones. He waits until nightfall and walks out into the abyss. The last image we see is his hand breaking the surface of the water. Starlight glints on his skin before his fingers submerge below the surface. His last few swallows of water create pockets of bubbles which rise to the top. I absorbed what the rest of my existence would look like. 4 black SUVs pull up and circle around me in the parking lot. Men in black suits and the undercover agent from the bookstore ran at me. Even though I did not resist, they still threw me to the ground. They dislocated my shoulder and kicked me in the jaw a handful of times before they cuffed me. I did get time reduced in prison after I agreed to cooperate to catch people like me. After my release date, I have tried to revisit that link without luck. I fail to understand how that article existed in the first place. I have read how high-level stress can open up insights and portals into the unknown. I would bank on the latter, though sometimes I think it isn't for me to know. I do not want to give in to what destiny has written for me. My escape from the bookstore has given me confidence that I can change the outcome of the dark web's prophecy, even if only for a little while. Or did I only extend the inevitable for a fraction of time? Fate, especially in regards to our stories as individuals, is not written in stone. It is malleable, I tell myself. This positive thought is the only thing which keeps me going. I should visit Liv's house now. She has not answered my texts all morning. Thank you for listening. Hope I didn't scare you too much. If you like my stories, please consider giving me a like and subscribe. See you next time.